Hi, my name's Joey. I work for Graczyk Lawn and Landscape. I do everything from mowing to spraying to installing underground sprinkler systems, and that is what I'll be talking to you about today, is the underground sprinkler system part of it. What we have over here is just your basic setup. Typically this would be underground, but for demonstration purposes it'll be above ground today. What we have here is this would basically be one zone. Zones depends on the size of your yard and your water pressure, but depending on that is how you base how many zones you have. Right here, like I said, is just one zone. It's for a smaller area. Zones are controlled by valves. For every zone you have a valve. I'll explain the valves a little bit later. And off your zones you also determine the size of your zone by what kind of nozzles and spray tips you're using. Zones are also determined by your double coverage. What double coverage is to get all the grass with two heads. Right here all we have is single coverage, and that's not a typical situation you want to have. Your main components to a system and kind of how it works is you start off with your main line, which our main line is right here, and that runs off your actual water system. And off your main line are your valves. Like I said, for every zone you have a valve. So if you have 5 zones, you'll have 5 different valves running off your main line. Then off the end of each valve you'll have your zone line. What we have right here is PVC pipe. Another type of pipe many people use is called poly pipe. It's a lot easier, more flexible. If you have a leak or anything like that, they're more easy to work on. But off either your PVC or your poly is where your heads come off. Your heads then spray onto your turf. Your valve right here, the wires will hook into your clock, and your clock is what runs the valve, turning it on and off. This is what we like to call a valve. Your main line runs into your valves, and every zone will run off a separate valve, and the wires here will run into your clock, and that's what turns on and shuts off your valve. When you run these to your clock, you set your clock off these. It all depends on how much you want to water, determining your heat and the area you're in. Right now it's mid-July, one of the hotter times of our season. We're typically going to run these from 20 to 30 minutes a day. Soil types, different places also matter. You just kind of have to determine that as you go. I mean, if your grass is drying up, obviously you need to run your clock a little longer and water more. Based off your clock, you can control many things. It's just an electrical clock. You can set the times you want to water. Typically you want to water late morning. This is just due to the fact that it helps control disease and water evaporation and such things like that. Your clock can also set how many days you want to water, how many times you want to water. You basically control your whole system off your clock, how you want to run it and how you want to set up your watering schedule. I'll talk to you now a little bit about heads. Right here is just a spray head. We also have what we call a rotor head. A rotor head is typically used for bigger areas. You can put your heads so they spray a lot further. These are for a smaller area type situations. We also have micro sprayers. Them are more used for landscape situations. Your just spray heads and your rotor heads are used more for turf. Pretty much you base these off what's your water pressure and how many heads you have going to your zones. You also have different types of nozzles you can put in your heads. This is also based off your pressure and how far of a distance you need to water. An example on like your rotor head, these can go anywhere from 1 degree to 360 degrees, complete circle. When you're putting nozzles in, you determine if we were to use this at a 180 degrees, you typically use a 2 gallon per minute nozzle, whereas if we were just going with a 90 degree, you would put in a 1 gallon per minute nozzle. and this is so you keep your precipitation rate the same. These are just a different type of nozzle you can put on your heads. They're all different gallon per minute, and like I said, the different nozzles just determines how much water flow is actually coming out of your head. Since this is above ground for demonstration purposes, this would normally be under the ground. You want your heads level with the grass, and you don't want them high enough so when you mow you don't catch one with a mower or anything. But all this line and all your valves are usually typically buried 6 inches to a foot deep is typical situation. Also, when you bury your valves, you'll have a green valve box so that they don't get full of dirt and mud and plug up or anything. My name is Joey Dolman. I work for Graczyk Lawn and Landscape. Today I've talked to you about underground sprinklers and how they work and some of the different components that run them. Thanks for watching ecountrylifestyle.com. Have a good day.